because we're the ones that see the inconsistencies, the immaturity in their life still. But why is it that they want to spend time with someone else outside of the home? They're probably receiving affirmation. I know we talked about this happening with one of our sons who's super social, and everybody loves him. And so why would he want to come home to mom, who's the one that's criticizing, finding things wrong, telling him the things he didn't do, that still, what he wasn't good at, he's not going to want to spend time at home. Why would I be surprised?
There comes a time when you need to stop correcting them in front of other people. You stop correcting them the way they eat, for example. Because if you went out to eat with a friend and they told you, hey, don't use your finger, use your fork. Hey, don't chew with your mouth open. They'll be like, what? You're not my mom. And that will be the last time they go out to eat with you. Or they'll be like, oh man, what a pain to going out to eat with this guy or this lady, right? So I was reading this book years ago, and there was a study, a very interesting study, and the author's talking about how Proverbs 15:30 says, bright eyes gladden the heart in the Bible. And he talks about a study where a number of college men were given 10 pictures of college-aged women who are nearly equally attractive. Each student was then asked to rate the pictures from most attractive to least attractive. What these young men did not know was that 5 of the women had been given an eye drop solution just before their pictures were taken. This solution dilated the pupils in their eyes, the same thing that happens naturally when we are really glad to see someone. The results of the study were just as we might expect. The girls with the bright eyes were chosen hands down as the 5 most attractive women in these pictures.
Wow. So it's really our attitude that makes us attractive and draws them in, right?
Yeah. And okay, here's another amazing book. Feeding Them the Mouth That Bites You. Great book about adolescence. We're going to talk about in another episode on how to proactively give them that freedom. From the time they're 12, 13, they're longing to be free. And there needs to be an emancipation period, the author calls it, where they feel respected, they feel honored, and there are consequences for not obeying too, but they're not being treated like children anymore.
Yeah. It's that our role has to change. It talks about how when they're young, we're like policemen, we're like the cops. We're checking in on them, making sure, hey, what are you doing? Don't do that. Trying to protect them all the time. And we have to transition from that to
being a judge. So for example, if you would ask a cop, at a Starbucks, hey, officer, I got a question. How much jail time would I do for possession of drugs? He might be like, why? You got some drugs on you? Let me check your trunk, right? Versus a judge, if you're having a conversation with a judge is not trying to prevent crime. They'll tell you, well, in the state of Texas, it's such and such. In the state of New York, it might be a little different. Why? Because he will deal with the case when it comes across his desk weeks later, okay? So as parents of teenagers, we need to start morphing into that type of authority. How many of you have had a similar conversation with your teenage boy? For example, a mom saying, hi, sweetie, how was your day? Fine. How was your math test? Fine. Who was the girl you were talking to when I drove up? Just a girl. Could you stop asking me all these questions? Okay, why would that happen? Why is that happening, honey?
Well, they think you're going to come in and critique or try to control. You didn't study enough for your math test. That's why I'm checking to see if you did well enough, if you can have my approval there. Oh, that girl, I want to know who she is. Is she good enough for you? Would that be a good person for you to go out with? What's her motive?
So that is the most complicated aspect of parenting teenagers. I believe parenting teenagers, it's seeing the transition, moving from control to influence. Mm-hmm. John Maxwell, a leadership expert, talks about leadership is nothing more, nothing less than influence, the ability to persuade someone. That's how you persuade and lead other people. Some of you may have organizations that you're leading in your job, in your business, and yet with your kids, like they won't listen to you. Why? Because they're becoming adults and you need to increase your influence. How? Through communication.
What I found interesting is that I didn't think I'm not even trying to control when I ask those questions. I just really want to know, but they're so used to us controlling their lives. And if we haven't affirmed that we have given them control in that area, you know what? I trust you. You can pick your friends. You're old enough. I don't control that. I'm just curious. I just wanted to know about this person. You really have to verbalize and vocalize that you've given up control in that area for them to really believe it. Because you may believe it, you may think you have, but what we found is that if you haven't taken the time to communicate that with them, then they still think that you're trying to control, you're holding the strings, right?
And we're going to go over that in another episode from this amazing book, Feeding the Mouth that Bites You, where he talks about teenagers need to go through a proactive process of emancipation where they become free, right? So, but let's just talk about the attitude first. If, for example, you tell your teenager, be home, they ask you, what time do I need to be home? Be home at a reasonable hour. And they get home at 2